Hey guys, Stealth here. Today I'm showing you a 10v10 that I played with a couple of subscribers. We decided to join in this game together, so we had a bit more communication than is pretty normal for a 10v10, where people just seem to do what they want and just communicate with attack markers, if at all. So, we were here together with Headmaster Obi-Wan. John Brownwood was not on TS, but he was communicating. And with the three of us, and pretty much with Demander, we managed to take out the entire left flank. This is going to be a pretty fast 10v10, at least faster than I had expected. Because this 10v10, as you may have seen already, has 65,000 victory points. That means that we have to go through a ton of units in order to actually win. Now, I had expected this game to last somewhere in the range of an hour, maybe 2 hours. Turns out, sometimes that's not really the time that you need. And to make things more interesting, we had about, I believe, 2,000 starting points per player. So you can see people spawning in a lot of units. These are John Brownwood's units over here. Next time John parked them on the road to make sure they start a bit faster. We had Obi-Wan's units here. Chieftains, challengers, even a K1, which means he's probably using a general NATO deck, which is interesting, you don't see those very often. I decided not to spawn in too much right from the get-go. I'm using a French general deck, by the way. I went with a couple of Crotals in order to make sure that we were not going to be subject to a heli rush over here in the left flank. And I also have command infantry in the Panther here. Panther being one of the fastest helicopters in the game. So if you have one of these, you're pretty guaranteed to arrive on the scene before your allies do. Now there's also a Lynx AH-1 from Demander going that way. Same speed, but somehow the Panther seems to be able to move a little bit faster. Other than that, I opened up pretty lightly for 2,000 points. I believe I had 1,100 points unspent. Because I just wanted to see what was going to happen, where the action was going to be, and where it was needed. So, two MX-1390 recons, a couple of cheap AMX-10 RC SBs, and some infantry, which consists with one autocannon. And I had one group of Legion and one group of Remas in there. And this, by the way, is the first thing we saw, and I was like, what the hell? Look at all these guys. T72BU double stack, T80UK. That's worth a lot of points. So I immediately notified my team members, and they immediately decided to go for it. So the first aircraft I called in was a Jaguar to see if there was any radar guided AA active. There wasn't, which made it safer, and you can see the Demander's thinking the same thing. Now that these Tungushkas are opening up, we can start to take them out. So we neutralized their AA a little bit. Headmaster is coming in with his bombers. My Mirages are coming in. And just watch this. All these MTLBVs. Just getting wasted like that. Super Etendars managed to waste a couple of those high point tanks. I believe they took care of at least one of the T-72 BUs. And John Brownwood's longbow here is neutralizing the rest. So I'm not really sure what this guy was doing down the middle, but I don't think he's a very experienced player. And of course, yeah, that's part of a 10v10. Sometimes you get these games, sometimes you don't. This was one of them. I stopped my forces because I wasn't sure what kind of next parade was going to come into Delta. And if I want to ambush someone somewhere, I want to do it here, where I have at least a bit of cover for my infantry. Now, the HQ section here got offloaded. That's the one from Demander. I packed up my CV to make sure that I had a fast CV available. Because I spotted something very interesting. Look at this. Alpha is wide open. There's artillery. We can see the outlines of a few FOBs. But there's no CV. So that means that the reinforcements are going to come from Charlie or Echo. And both are quite far away. So I decided my next stop is going to be this building. I want to have at least a bit of terrain captured here in order to make sure that if a tank unit comes through here, my Legionnaires and my Remas are going to be able to take care of that. the same time, bringing in some units over on the left, Leclerc, AMX 40 and a Roland. Because over here there was quite some battle going on with tanks, Mostrelkies, and it seemed that Headmaster needed a bit of a hand here in order to pull off this offensive. Anyway, my units got to here, and I was like, okay, so why is there nothing coming? And then I saw this. So I put a marker down. Is this route open? Has anyone seen this yet? Not many people saw that, but John Brownwood did. He deployed some new units to move up right into this position. AMX 10RC is getting on the move, and I immediately redeploy my infantry back into the vehicles to make sure they're fast and mobile. So we got AMX 3090s as well pushing up, trying to provide spots here. I'm just gathering my forces right now. Even got some Cassiopes here. These were initially sent in to deal with this push, but they arrived a little bit too late when I believe everything was dead. They haven't fired a single shot each. And I mean each group, of course. Also have one Rafale out, and you can see that it's pretty flying here pretty unchallenged. I had expected it to be at least shot at, but that didn't happen. Saw a UAZ come in from this angle, got shot immediately by the Cassiope, and then all of a sudden a lot of units opened up here. I wasn't able to see what they were, but they turned out to be Afghanskis. So offloaded the infantry, and remarkably, without any loss of life, not even my infantry groups got hurt, they managed to kill all 4 of those Afghanskis. I had expected something quite different, really. Anyway, back in the vehicle, AMX back en route, Cassiopes back forward. Move, move, move. I'm gonna get in here, I'm gonna take care of the artillery, and then try and find the CV and push that down. F-111 here from Demander, gonna make a lot of kills. All the artillery is gonna go right up in flames. So, captured 2 FOBs. Nice to have, but it's not what I'm looking for here. That's what I wanted to see. The UAZ just carefully hiding out there. And that caused Torture to surrender, which is one of the Red 4 guys. Tunguska here opening up on my Cassiopes. A bit unfortunate, but these things aren't that expensive. They're 40 points. And still 2 of them managed to make it out, well, alive. Not unhurt, but alive. And here comes my CV. This Panther is flying in with the command infantry that I deployed initially here, but when I saw that there were too many CVs here, I thought, well, I can pack mine back up, fly it north, and try to capture this zone. That's what I did. It was a bit weird that this Tunguska might cause problems and try to shoot down the Panther, but I think that these guys managed to kill them off just in time, making themselves elite. Meanwhile, Cassiopes here are killing off 100-point artillery units, so this one's already elite. And I just decided to land them right next to the FOB in order to capture that and get the Cassiopes repaired. So, zone under our control. Put on a marker, get ready to spawn. Because if people are going to call in reinforcements, they are suddenly going to come from Alpha, not so much from Papa. Took a bit of an unfortunate bombing run there, lost most of my infantry, but the infantry, well, let's say it wasn't really going to be that useful the rest of the push east. Some fighters here, not really doing anything except shooting down that Panther. Too little, too late. Eurofighters come in from Demander, shoot down both birds, as I focus on neutralizing this UAZ. Also decided to bring in some Marder Rolands, or some AMX Rolands, in order to get some AA going. I saw those jets come in and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to have constant jets flying over my lines. So AMX coming in, as well as some battle tanks to determine or to deter whatever is going to come in after me. Now this wasn't the only flank we were pushing, but this was the one I was focused on. We were pushing right here. We were also pushing up through the left flank, and I pretty much put these units on attack move and didn't micromanage them that much, but they still got quite a few kills here. And somehow either the CV moved or it got killed off already. Now at the same time, we managed to push at a completely different flank, other side of the map. November is also ours. So we didn't really give the enemy a lot of room to maneuver or to spawn new units from. They did try to do a counter push here. So my AMX-40s are now slugging it out with the T-80s. T-80s, 16 armor penetration, 13 armor. My tanks, 19 armor penetration, 12 armor. So my armor penetration is higher. And I briefly saw a, I think it was a T-80 UK there, or a T-80U. And I tried to get the Super Etendars to shoot it down. They unfortunately didn't quite manage that. Because I lost sight of it, of course. Now we got another massive push of units coming in here, but it turned out to be just spam tactics. Maybe you recognize these units, but they are BTR 152s. That doesn't ring a bell? I don't blame you. Because those units are simple machine gun trucks. There's just a whole lot of them. Let's switch this to neutral so you can see. Look at that. BTR 152s as far as the eye can see. And they just kept bringing these in. Which was perfect for me, because it was just pretty much free kills. The only thing that it was going to take was a lot of shells. And against a position like this, you can even do a bombing run without really taking care of an aircraft, because they cannot even shoot at aircraft. They just don't have a tracking sensor for that, it seems. So, we get Demander here. John Brownwood pushing up with an Abrams. I'm spawning in 7 ERC-90s to deal with this push. And somehow they already managed to ditch their CV in this sector, or it might be moving east, but at any rate, they don't have control of this one. Also got my Leclerc here, pushing up, trying to do damage, but come on, having a Leclerc 160-point tank shoot at stuff like this, it's a bit below it, isn't it? So other than that, we managed to push through Charlie on the left flank, and Headmaster did a good job securing that zone. So now we have this terrain, we have this zone, and I can move my units up further. And I gotta say, with the units that I had being pretty spread out, it was a bit of a struggle to keep everything at or near the front line, to keep everything firing. Bend over surrenders, and unsurprisingly that's another Red 4 player. BMPTs here, I was a bit worried about these, but then I saw what was firing at them, and that's John Brownwood with a lot of armored forces. And he managed to take care of those guys pretty quickly. So pushing in, a couple of cheap ERC-90s. I had to get off the road here for a bit because my vehicles were starting to take napalm damage. Obi-Wan pushing in a command unit, which I believe I wasn't doing at the time, but Headmaster was. So if you have a rapid push like this, it's always a question of who's going to do what. And in this situation, we ended up with multiple people buying CVs repeatedly, which is fine. It's better to have multiple CVs than none at all. But sometimes it's a bit of a waste of units. Now I have no idea what this guy was doing, this Zinnik, because there's 12 Afghanskis here. Why? All I can think of is that he's a newer unit, and a newer player. I don't want him flamed in the comments, by the way, just because he's a newer player. I just don't understand what he's doing here. So, Zinnik, if you happen to be watching this, if you have a push like this, make sure that you have sufficient anti-tank capability, because pretty much the only units that were coming at you were armored units or transports. The best thing to do against that is get ATGMs, ATGM aircraft, ATGM helicopters, or units that can support that in a reasonable fashion, such as BMP-1Ps, BMD-2s, BMD-3s. Anyway, captured new zone, thanks to Headmaster here. A couple of MiG-23 MLs coming in. Rafale tried to shoot it down, really didn't stand a chance because the Eurofighter managed to get all the kills there. But pushing in with more units, AMX-3 or AMX-30 Roland 3, a couple of new AMX-10 RCs, my Leclerc is moving up, AMX-40 is moving up. You can see that I'm constantly lagging behind with my forces. We just have so many of them that they're getting spread out. These, by the way, are the forces that I had sent from Charlie all the way into Alpha, go to the fob, get resupplied, get ammo, get shells, get repaired, whatever you need, and then move forward into this position. Because it was getting increasingly more resistant here. Now, as far as points goes, we're 7,000 points ahead, which is a lot in a 10v10. I don't really see that often. Anyway, as far as reinforcement zones that Red Force still has, they have Golf, they have Foxtrot, Lima, Mike, and I believe that about covers it. So they have 4 reinforcement zones left, with us trying to push onto Foxtrot next. So we got Demander here bringing a duo stack of Challenger 2s. Well, we don't really have that much. If you look at the forces composition, here's reconnaissance. Partially I'm to blame for that. I did have 1 Alouette. That was pretty much it. That was really the only recon unit that we had here. And here comes the Afghansky push. Still, not really sure what he was thinking, what he was hoping to do. He was just gifting us points, and these are not 10-point units, these are 20-pointers. Leclerc here captured a Euro cargo. Nice to have, but at this situation it's more trouble than it's worth. And my Leclerc here is trying to do as much damage as possible, but it's taking constant AGGM fire. And we're having to deal with pretty much 2 pushes at the same time. One off our south, with the Afghanskys, and one of our east, which is a defensive position, which seems to have a lot of ATGMs. And unfortunately somehow they managed to destroy my Leclerc as I was paying attention to relocating my other forces. You can see my other forces coming in here. Bit of an expensive loss, but so long as we can keep this offensive going, and I can do that without Leclerc, I'm not worried. So, getting my forces back a little bit, because we pushed out a lot of tanks, but not so much AA. We had 1 pivot, a few more pivots back there, one by Obi-Wan, John Brownwood. But they managed to drop a few cluster bombs on top of us. You can see this Leclerc is heavily hurting. Lost 7 out of 10 hit points already. So I decided to send this guy a little bit back to get repaired. Now Pad here is pushing in with a helicopter rush, which is doing a pretty good job considering, but most of these are out of missiles already. And they're just basically being sacrificed. I'm not sure what Pad was doing here, but a helicopter push like this, without a helicopter that's providing spots for them, so a recon, not really that effective. You see constant air patrols, and there's just one huge blob of forces trying to push east there. At the same time, a very, very, very large amount of units in the middle, commanded by Rigor Mortis, as well as Colonial Officer. A lot of infantry. LVTP 7s, lots and lots of Marines here, but just look at the minimap. This is so condensed that the game almost considers it to be one big unit. That's the way that it looks to me on the map. Just not a concentration of forces. I mean, this is what I call a concentration. A few or a high concentration of blips on the minimap. This is just a, what should we call this? A stack or a radar block or whatever you want to call it. Come up with a good name for that and post it in the comments. Anyway, onto the push. My Leclerc, my other Leclerc, has arrived. I'm pushing in some new ERC 90s, and I did push up with my Leclerc that was wounded, which was not a good choice here. And I decided to go from the north in. Again, not really the best choice because there's an MI-28 there. So with that, I had to be a bit careful because they are excellent anti-air unit or anti-tank units. ADATs by Demander managed to snipe the CV there, and they're also trying to nuke that helicopter, which they pulled off. So, Foxtrot seems clear, pushing in. And I believe that, yeah, here's my wounded Leclerc, panicked and all. The other one, doing okay, pretty good on hit points, pretty good on veterancy. And I just had to keep bringing in more forces. So, more ERC 90s coming in. I completely forgot about this AMX 40. The Euro cargo, not important right now. I want to keep the push going, don't really have to resupply, because the resupply is just right here. John Brownwood captured 3 more FOBs. allowing pretty much all the units here to get resupplied and repaired instantly. And you can see that 35 SPK is putting his forces back into the next zone, which is Lima. So, we managed to neutralize another reinforcement route. Gulf is not yet being pressed, but Lima is going to be next, and Mike is getting pressed by Daimos here, coming in from the south. We can neutralize that and Lima, and we have this entire flank in our control, and the pressure on Gulf is going to be tremendous at that stage. So I decided to divert my forces here for a bit, and I said, okay, I'm going south. I'm going to push from the north, which means that now my allies know where I am coming from. Using my forces here to not go east but south, since we had, I believe, 3 people carrying this push towards the east. So I just decided to go south. At which stage, Headmaster managed to kill the CV, by the looks of it. So Gulf was neutralized, at least for a while. So I thought, oh, okay, turning around. You can see the AMX-40 turning around, going back north. ERC-90s going back north. Unfortunately, I had called in some units, and the units I had scheduled to be arriving about there. So some of those units are going to get killed off later on, simply because I completely forgot about them. There's these ERC-90s there. Horny left the game. Horny is another Red 4 player. And I'm not sure what this MiG-29M is trying to do. He's going way too far, getting shot down by 2 Rafales by Daimos. And a Tornado IDS from Headmaster is possibly going on a bombing run here. At any rate, we take a bit of time to repair, rearm, get some reinforcements where needed. I bunched up my Leclercs into a dual group, which at this stage you can pretty safely do. And 2 Leclercs are a pretty awesome force. They have a lot of firepower together. ERC-90, AMX-10RC pushing in from the south, heading slightly north and trying to link up with the rest of my forces here. You can see my my ERCs, my Cortals here. I did lose 2 ERCs, and that's down the middle, because I completely forgot about these things, didn't provide spots, so what ended happening is that I lost 3 ERCs there, pretty much in no succession at all. My bad, shouldn't have pushed them that fast, that far. But what they did do was pull their CV back from India and back into Gulf, which means that they now have a reinforcement route in Gulf again. Now, Leclerc's trying to get shots, doing some damage to BMD-1Ps, BMP-1s, and these things are so amazingly accurate, even on the move. 80% accuracy. 20, 20, 20, it just keeps going up with the points here. And then I decided, this is where I made a mistake. I pushed too far with my vehicles, and I got punished for it. These are just base VDVs, but base VDVs are perfectly capable of killing off lightly armored vehicles like ERC-90s. Realized my mistake, pushed all my vehicles off the road right away, steer clear of this forest. Unfortunately, these guys I overlooked, and I believe they're going to get killed off pretty quickly. See a few BTRs coming in. There goes a Grotal. MX-40 taking quite a few damaging hits there, panicking him. My Leclercs are looking okay right now, but there's a duo stack of T-80 UMs, which are going to start firing Ingvars at me, so I decided to pull back. So look at the speed of those ATGMs, killing off another Grotal. So I had to wait for my other AA units to arrive, and I still had a few Grotals here. Decided to do a bombing run with a Mirage, but when I saw all the bombing runs coming in from Obi-Wan, I thought, well, nah, I'm good. I'm just gonna pull it off for now. Also, I think he lost 1 Harrier there, maybe 2. Yeah, there's the second one. At this point it was definite for me not to go in there with an airstrike. Rafales shooting down the MiG-25. Yeah, there it goes. Spiraling down. So this forest is probably going to be pretty infested. At least that's the way it looked to me. They got a few PTR-90s, 70s, VDVs, Gornostrelkis. And other than that, they have most of their artillery in this position. We got Nonas, Smirches, Buratinos, all that very, very nasty stuff. And they managed to get quite a few shots in on my units. Fortunately, that was not the smirch firing. If those would have been the smirches, that would have been pretty nasty. And again, I completely forgot about some of my units. The AMX and the Roland here, I just completely forgot about those. I had called in a few Gazelles. I even have a 1390 here, which is out of fuel. So I had so many units spread out. Here's another AMX 40, probably from the push to the south that I did. Wasn't really doing too much there. Pushing in with 2 Super Etendars, managed to kill off one of those T-80s. And yes, you need 2 Super Etendars to do that. Killing off even one of them was worth it. Those high damaging tanks, I wanted those out of the way ASAP. Because once those were dead and my AA could neutralize the helicopters here, I had a pretty decent opportunity to use my Leclercs and kill anything that moves. You can see Obi-Wan here with Chieftain Merc 11s pushing in, trying to get as much of these infantry killed. But he's using, or he's going up against Chronostrokes here at very, very short range. T-80UM still pulling back, still trying to do damage. ADAT shooting right back at it, by the looks of it. Didn't get a shot in. So this T-80UM was very, very threatening. My Leclercs are taking shots at it, doing damage, slowly whittling it down. He's shooting back at them, slightly missed that Leclerc. If he had hit that, it would have probably finished off one of them. Now trying to push in, you can see that John is again using a lot of units which are quite suited for an, let's say, forced encounter like this. A lot of infantry, Bradleys, Comvats, very useful units to push in here. Don't push your tanks through a forest like this. That's pretty much a death sentence for those tanks, especially considering what they have. And we didn't really know what exactly they had, but we knew that they had quite a few units there. Now we did somehow manage to neutralize their CV, and I saw that there were a lot of HGMs coming from this position, so someone tried to do a bombing run. The bombing run succeeded. I think that the infantry here either got hit or died, but not without losing the bomber, unfortunately. I decided to wait for a bit, get these units to calm down, because shaken and panicked units are not going to be that effective. And make sure that these units are also getting some repairs, because they are very, very easily killed off now. T-80UM was just sitting there, getting repaired constantly by these fobs, and providing quite a bit of opportunity for them to do a lot of damage to our tanks. So John Brown was pushing up here. Make sure that next time you do this, John, you have more infantry in front of your tanks. Tanks, in a situation like this, I always consider them fire support. So offload your Marines, push your Marines through first, then follow up with your Abrams. It's a way safer way to go. They're trying to get shots on a lot of stuff, but the HGM position here, I'm not sure what it is. Let's have a look. Look at that. They had 7 Factorias sitting here. A T-80UM, capable of firing ATGMs, a BMP-3 with Arcan missiles, an Mi-24 VP, just managed to run out of ammo. But this means that there are 7 ATGMs at least coming at you. Oh, there's even more there. Let's make that 9 ATGMs coming at you every few seconds. They're not going to survive. So, reasonably, what we should have done here is put up a smokescreen and then try and either bomb the position or push in with infantry. And you can see that I'm just casually keeping my range here. I'm not interested in going up close. Because in the meanwhile I was focused somewhere else. I was helping out in the middle here with Rigor Mortis and Headmaster, and deploying a couple of my Gazelle Hot 2s in order to kill off the vehicle threat that was here. And with that and all of their forces, they managed to neutralize the CV in Gulf and the reinforcement route. So that managed to kill off the last of their CVs in the middle. Or at least that's our current take on it. Of course, they still have hotel, but that's not a reinforcement route. That's not so big a threat. Job done for my gazelles, so they're pushing back, and I think I'm going to put them somewhere near a fob to get them refueled and repaired. Or, sorry, not refueled, but rearmed. Now, still a few aircraft from John Brownwood flying overhead, trying to do damage to the Ka-52. I believe he's lost both of those Block 52s. Pretty painful, because there was just a lot of AA there. If you want to kill a Ka-52, you don't really have to. Because at this stage it wasn't really that big a threat. All we had to do is bring in some infrared AA and kill it off. You can see he's trying to follow up with a Prowler, but at that stage 35 SPK had already turned his radar back off and the missiles on, and I believe the Prowler did not get hit there, but that was more to luck. In the meanwhile, I managed to deploy a command infantry right on the edge of the map. You can see the Panther getting the hell away from there. Reinforcing this position so that now we can spawn in right behind them. I bring in a Leclerc, AMX-40, Crotals. We can see Harpoon spawning, but at that stage people decided to surrender and we got the game done. So, that got me the highest kill list in the game, or the highest kill ratio. Right next to Demander at 4,700. 1,655 lost, which is really not that bad. There was another familiar guy in the enemy team, which is Pilot 124. I gotta say, Pilot did very well. I believe he was possibly the last one to surrender, but that means that with all the people who were surrendering, he was getting increasingly more units. Let's just say that he had, at some point, probably about 80% of the units on the map that were left from Red 4. But look at his win, or his kill-death ratio. He only lost 800 forces, or 800 points. That's extraordinary in a situation like this. So he did really, really, really well there to manage all of those forces and not get killed off. So big shout out to Pilot 124 for doing a very, very good job there. John Brownwood made positive, but next time, John, be a little bit more careful with your tanks and your aircraft, because you lost quite a few of those. LB1 did a good job there. Headmaster lost a few more forces, but I believe that with his push on Gulf, combined with that of Deimos and Colonial Officer, they managed to neutralize that position. As far as my points go, I'm not really sure why I managed to get this many. I really didn't look at the kill list too much. I just managed to get a few high point units. You can see here Tungushkas, Tungushka M, that's worth 100 points. 272 BU, worth 180. This is that bombing run initially. Surprising, or to confuse people, they called this Mirage 5 F Leclerc, which makes not really a lot of sense, but okay. Crotal managed to take care of a few resupply choppers. And yes, I told it to manually fire at those resupply choppers because there was no way I was going to capture them. I was just going to deny the enemy these reinforcements or resupplies. BMPTs got killed off by my AMX-10, even a Tungushka, UAZ. See, if you start trading units like an AMX-10, which I believe is a 40-point unit, to a Tungushka M, 100 points, UAZ, 100 points, that's 200 points, 3 BMPTs, that's 210 points. That's a positive ratio. That's 10 to 1 that this thing is making. Of course, it won't do that every match, and not every vehicle will do that, but if you can pull it off, these things are amazingly effective. Other than that, I think I was just at the right place at the right time, and a lot of that also came down to the strange pushes that we have seen going. The Afghanskis, of course the peons got killed off quickly by the Cassiopes. All the Afghanskis here getting killed by the AMX-40s. T-80Bs getting killed off by the Gazelles. That was, I believe, somewhere towards the beginning, where I managed to call in a few Gazelles and they managed to neutralize quite a few of the tanks that were threatening my tanks, which made it a lot safer for Marines to come in. Here's a kill list by the Leclerc. A very large amount of those cheap units. Afghanskis, Buratino, not so cheap. ERC-90s, Afghanskis. So, I don't know, it's just a combination of everything. Anyway, again, I hadn't really expected to win a 10v10.
with 65,000 destruction points in a little under 30 minutes, but we managed to pull it off. Anyway, hope you enjoyed watching this gameplay. I definitely enjoyed playing it. That push was, I've got to say, it was hard work, but mostly logistically. To keep everything moving, to keep all of my units involved, to keep stuff repaired, to keep an overwatch on what we needed, how many units we had, where there was going to be need for the next one. Stuff like that really took up more of my time than actual getting the points. At that end, I know some people don't like 10v10s, but I really enjoyed this one and I hope you did too. If you did, please hit like button and I will be seeing you in the next video.